So the oldest mouthpiece in our catalogue, at Henri SELMER Paris, is the Soloist. It appeared in the 1950s, which was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution for Selmer mouthpieces with the arrival of mortising. That's where the horseshoe shape comes from. The Soloist is known as a very versatile mouthpiece, especially a strong crossover model. It can be used for jazz as well as for classical music. Of course, the tip opening plays a major role in that choice. Smaller openings such as C star or C2 stars are generally used for classical music, while larger openings such as E or F are more often used for jazz. We truly have musicians who play it in both musical styles. Then we have the S80. The S80 is the first mouthpiece with the famous square chamber. And within the S80 range, there is the well-known C-star opening, which has become a market standard. In fact, the main characteristic of this mouthpiece is that it is very easy to approach. That is why it is often presented as a beginner's mouthpiece, which is completely wrong. You cannot say that a mouthpiece is meant more for beginners than for professionals. There are also many professionals who play the C-star. But the key points of the S80 are, first of all, it has been in the catalogue for a very long time, since the 1980s, as its name suggests, and above all, it is very easy to play, and allows players to achieve a very pleasant sound, very quickly. So the C-star, what really defines it, is a rather round sound. Next comes the S90, which we can describe as its little brother. Same chamber style, square chamber, the baffle at about the same place behind the bore exit, with slight differences, but in terms of the acoustic result, it produces a more colorful tone. The S90 is more richly toned. Let me tell you the story behind it. Michel Nouot was a tester at Selmer, and also a soloist with the French Republican Guard. At that time, everyone was playing the famous C-star. He asked Selmer to create a mouthpiece with more tonal richness, so he could project above the orchestra when performing his solos. That is how the S90 mouthpiece was developed. Next comes the concept. This family of mouthpieces has its own sound identity, which is much rounder and much more flexible. The goal is to offer a truly universal mouthpiece with a modern approach. Sound aesthetics evolve over time, and in the past, we favored very bright, highly colored sounds in the 1980s and 1990s, whereas today we lean much more towards round, warm and very flexible sounds. Next, we have a mouthpiece that is very specific, the Claude Delangle mouthpiece. The idea at Selmer was to create a mouthpiece in Claude's image, a true soloist mouthpiece, with power, with richness of tone, and able to bridge the gap between metal mouthpieces and hard rubber mouthpieces. We have not talked about metal mouthpieces yet. They were widely used in classical music some years ago. They have advantages, but also some drawbacks. One of the main drawbacks is that because the material is cold, it tends to create condensation, and therefore impurities in the sound. The second drawback, which is very important and unfortunately dangerous, is that a sudden movement of the instrument can cause the mouthpiece to hit the teeth and sadly break them. So hard rubber gradually took over. However, metal brings a certain density to the sound. So for this mouthpiece, we've created a mix of these two materials to get the best out of each. This means the entire bore, the whole cylindrical part of the mouthpiece, is made of metal, and on top of that we've added a hard rubber section, which in turn will produce a sound that is very rich and very powerful.